Hi, I'm David Penn, Research Analyst with Finovate. Thank you for joining us for our latest Finovate webinar. Today's topic is Beyond Images, how video is reshaping digital customer engagements in banking to drive agile growth. Our guest for the hour is Tom Martin, CEO of Glance Networks. Glance Networks specializes in enhancing digital customer engagements by enabling human agents to provide in-app and on-website human-to-human guidance. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
David, thanks for having me. Great to be here. And what we do here at Glance is help some of the world's largest and most beloved brands deliver real human connections in their digital channels. We enable staff to be able to provide human-guided digital engagement, to see what they're looking at, to answer questions, present, deliver that expert consultation, and guide them to complete transactions, really to help them move forward. And today we're going to talk about this explosion in video. We've all experienced it in one way or another within this past year, and how video is really changing the landscape of customer engagement. We're going to illustrate that with a real world success story from one of our customers, a major brand that I'm sure you're all familiar with, especially around this time of the year, knowing that tax season was extended a month. We've also set aside some time at the end to answer a few questions you might have, as well as do a demo of what the video looks like in the digital wild. So let's hop right in. To kick this off, let's start by talking about the past. In 2019, a JD Power survey revealed that 78% of U.S. retail customers wanted their banks to provide financial advice or guidance. And of those, 58% preferred a digital channel. So just think about that for a second. 2 years prior, the global lockdowns that forced consumers to digital channels, really the only channel, they were craving more online financial advice. And, banks were already taking note of this. This wasn't something that just emerged, but they were already noticing this trend and starting to move towards putting more emphasis on building out their digital channels. And as banking digitally is emerging and becoming pervasively adopted, we started to see a decline in brick and mortar branch banks. And we also, just from an interesting note, 2020 figured this does not include temporary closures due to the pandemic. And we heard about banks like US Bank and Chase, where all the branches were closed. There was really no branches available. You only had a digital channel. And this research published by here shows that by 2019, 2/3 of customers used digital channels for really most of their banking transactions. And here we get to 2020. Global lockdowns forced every industry to innovate at a rate which no one thought could be possible. According to a recent study here showing here by Twilio, COVID-19 accelerated companies' digital communication strategies by an average of 6 years, while 97% of enterprise decision makers believe the pandemic sped up their company's digital transformation. As a result, digital transformation went from a 6-year goal to an immediate requirement to stay relevant and competitive. And digital engagement has moved quickly beyond that sort of traditional customer support and service into sales. This is about driving revenue. How do I survive? How do I make sales in the real world, knowing people can't come into the store? And being able to deliver human-guided digital engagement is enabling companies to reimagine how they're doing business, to create new revenue streams, to create fit is important, and it's a result that we are able to deliver. But we take a look at financial institutions. They're facing a new imperative to drive revenue, to differentiate in a increasingly competitive market, and really to stay relevant. And as the pandemic is coming to an end, thankfully, digital is going to remain and grow as a communication channel among big banks and consumers alike. And in a recent study here, completed by KeyBank, they found that 85% of Americans have confirmed that they will use digital tools to conduct some or maybe all of their financial transactions once the pandemic has completely passed. And with consumers moving more towards digital channels, innovation teams are finding a need to track and optimize the digital journey. And as you can see here from this data collected from Salesforce as part of a 2020 global survey of enterprises and their customers, customers take many paths when it comes to taking and getting advice and seeking answers to their questions. This past year exposed the challenge that many associates and advisors in financial services need to be able to deliver expertise and consultation digitally instead of face-to-face. Security and the ability to build trust was as high as a priority as speed in being able to get those answers provided. And one of the things we also note is that there are so many ways to be able to provide connections with customers. A recent study by Deloitte talked about how it's important to be able to make sure that all of these channels work and that you're able to be responsive versus opening up a channel because you think people need to be connected and not being able to be a responsive, convenient way to communicate. So thinking about many customer journeys and building lifetime value with customers, you may be left wondering how to best support customers in a way that really builds trust and strengthens relationships. This issue we've seen in many industries, but most prevalent here in the financial sector, as there is this extra layer of empathy that needs to go into every personal and emotional customer decision. You think about in a journey where you might be shopping for a loan and you realize, the digital tools will allow you to do all of that pre-work, to be able to look at a knowledge base, to find out what the difference is between one loan versus another, maybe a monthly estimator or a pre-qualification tool, but suddenly you're into the journey of actually applying for that loan and it gets complicated, emotions start to rise, and you really need someone who can help demystify fees or really guide you to what's the right decision for me. What we found is in this digital journey, there's often this missing critical factors that really, when we take a look at these things, they've been traditionally been present, when you're face to face with customers. But here we recognize that this human expertise, this ability to provide consultation and empathy, we call this human connection gap. And you thought you were coming here to listen and learn about technology, and in one way you are, but it's also about bringing people together. We like to say in the moment, at critical times in their digital journey, to get advice on how to move forward, because we recognize that humans instinctively seek out connections that are real, meaningful, and in the moment. And we know humans often take the path of least resistance. So being able to make those connections instantaneously becomes really important. And most of the digital journeys struggle with a human connection gap. And this imperative is trying to solve a problem that isn't new and has been called out by Forrester research probably 3, maybe 5 years ago. Organizations agree that traditional experiences no longer satisfy customers, and the opportunity to create emotive and powerful experiences for customers is out there, and leaders can inspire human-centric thinking that resonates with positive brand experiences across all lines of their business. How? By creating organizational alignment, a customer-obsessed culture, a technology suite that enables and encourages innovation and real-time change. The pandemic has only made this harder to achieve. And we know customers are stuck today, without support, which points today to a more guided experience. When we look at customer journeys, they're often a point in their journey that are personal, emotional, and complex. We call these moments critical advisory moments. And the things that we recognize here is when there's a successful approach for an agent or an advisor saying, hey, you know what, let's do this together, because the do-it-yourself can often cause frustration and abandonment. In the physical world, many of you may have heard of ads from Home Depot. Hey, let's do this. Let's do this together. And so we've entered this age of guided customer experiences where financial institutions are no longer competing on product, feature, or price. They're competing on the customer experience and the value that they can bring to those customers. Remember Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat. It speaks to how companies are going to compete in the future. He views the world as a level playing field in terms of commerce, wherein all competitors, except for labor, have an equal opportunity. Humans are great at having emotionally resonant interactions, in building relationships and trust. And when you need to convey complex information or data, when customers have a difficult query, or when they need expert support to make a decision, guided customer experiences put your best people where your best customers are. And this is especially true when the cost or the financial transaction is high. I like to think about the length or the impact of the decision is long, and one's ability to understand alternatives is low. You know, this was a quote from an investor analyst meeting on quarterly results from U.S. Bank, who just underlines the fact that, you know, when most of the transactions, nearly 80%, are occurring digitally, you know, they've really moved from, hey, you know what, it's not going to be just the do it yourself, but it's also going to be the do it together. So a great sort of underlying theme. So speaking of U.S. Bank, their vice chair for consumer and business banking, Tim Welsh, sums up what and why video is so important when he was quoted recently as saying, customers continue to show that they value being able to talk to a human being about their banking needs. Being able to meet a customer virtually and provide a friendly face to an interaction can help drive NPS, CSAT, CES, and customer satisfaction. You know, as we see here in the rise in the need for video, I'd like to point out that there are many online collaboration tools out there. You know, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, we've all used them. They're making great headways with scheduled meetings in helping teams and companies stay connected when everyone's working from home or remote. But there's still holes for enterprises that need to respond with guided experiences directly with their customers, to meet them in the moment, wherever they are, at a moment's notice, to help them through complex or frustrating or really high-value decisions. And you know, this has been a known issue for financial institutions, but we're seeing demand for applications ranging from high-value retail and automotive to healthcare and onboarding, all the way through to, you know, the other parts of the world, from manufacturing, where people just can't find ways to get connected. Glance users want to really want to comfort their customers while reinforcing their brand message. It's an important aspect. And so when it comes to thinking about how to build your online digital experience, here are 3 features to really look out for. You know, being able to connect with people in the moment and in context, having your solution be in brand, embedded into the workflow, making sure that it is safe and secure and meets all of your requirements, whether it's compliance or regulatory, and thinking about things like building relationships in a digital world and trust, helping customers at those critical advisory moments, you know, connecting emotionally. You know, we think about, we want solutions that are easy, effective, and emotionally, your empathetic muscle and understanding the customer journey. It's an important part of how you can start to create those important journeys for customers. So let's jump into a real world demo here that we'll get playing here for you. You know, a little spoiler alert, Smartlook is a visual engagement solution that is powered by us, by Glance. And Smartlook is essentially the same customer experience in the TurboTax native Android or iPhone mobile app, the browser app, and even their desktop apps that work on side of a PC, a laptop, Windows, or Mac. And customers can change channels. You know, oftentimes people will start in one channel and complete in a completely separate channel. And you know, you think about starting your tax return in that mobile app and then completing it on the desktop, because you might need more real estate to be able to view things. And the Smartlook support experience feels the same in any of those platforms. Smartlook provides a consistent omni-channel customer experience and agent experience across every digital platform. And when you start to think about people that are using technology, when it's intuitive, when it looks and feels the same, when you don't have to suddenly ask many questions about, oh, where are you? Oh, I've got to use this. It just says, hey, you know what? I see you're online. Let's connect. And when you think about some of the results, Smartlook, holy cow, 18% boost in transactional NPS. Customers loved it. We heard many customers say, hey, you know what? I feel like I've got a tax angel on my shoulders. Or, gosh, you know what? Can anyone just review my taxes, make sure I didn't leave anything on the table? And you can see how and what I mean when I say that Glance adds that human element to digital engagements. Same thing when you think about, people say, what kind of efficiency can you bring? And here they've achieved 10% higher support case resolution, which is a direct driver of revenue because in most cases, Intuit monetizes the customer only when they click on the submit button and the filing of that tax return is complete. The rise of the gig economy, and we're all familiar with Uber and Lyft. Many people have taken them, people moonlighting to make a little extra money, and to be able to deliver the level of expertise in the moment often requires specialized skills with people that are not interested in working in that traditional contact center. These are people that are saying, hey, you know what, I can work from home. And many people who are going back to the offices aren't going back 5 days a week. Initial polls say that the genie is out of the bottle. Most people are looking, and I think there was a survey that said that something like 46% of people are willing to leave if they don't have a flexible work environment because they value that ability to work at home for some or many of the days of the week, which is driving companies to look for solutions that are cloud-based, flexible, in-brand, secure. And this is something that you realize as you're delivering and thinking about the type of solution that you're trying to deliver to meet the customer journeys that you have. You're looking for those types of things. And when we looked at what Intuit was doing here, they created a completely new business unit. They used to be in the software business, and they were using us to provide that level of support to help people navigate to complete their taxes. Here, they created a new business unit, which was, hey, you know what? We'll actually do your taxes for you. Here's just a PC Magazine review of Intuit TurboTax published back in January 2020. And notice how TurboTax earned the Editor's Choice Award. It's the Stalwart Award. And let me point out a few things related to their commitment to CX. User experience is at the top of the list of pros. They call out features like TurboTax Live. What is that? I'll tell you just a little bit more. I was talking about that just a second ago. And on the list of cons, expensive. But let me reframe that for you. In a field of less expensive and indeed free competitors, Intuit TurboTax is able to charge a premium price and still dominate the market and be recognized as an editor's choice. Let's talk more about that here in a second. One of the things we know is that video connects and conveys emotion and information really unlike any other medium. And when we think about the guided experience that we've been talking about, our guided CX really allows in-person and importantly in-brand secure collaboration at the touch of a button. When products are unfamiliar, complex, or require that high degree of commitment, I mentioned earlier, Glance means you never abandon customers at those critical moments across their journey, whether it's a purchasing, onboarding, upselling, or servicing. So now let's, now that we've really talked about some of these pieces of the guided CX does, let's actually see it in action. We're going to pop up a live demo of this, and you'll get a chance to see this.
Okay, let's do a quick demo to show you what it looks like. You're looking at a demo application we've created. It's a browser-based digital lending website, similar to what many financial companies offer for mortgage applicants. For the demo, I'm going to play the role of the loan officer, and Tom Martin is going to be playing the role of the applicant.
Hi there.
We're also joined by Bonnie Gibson, who's playing the role of his wife, the co-applicant.
Hello.
And Andy and I were speaking on the phone, and I was telling him about some of the confusion I had regarding my loan application. And so we begin. Hi, Andy.
Hey, Tom. I understand you have some questions about your loan application. I'm here to help. Do you mind if I join you in the digital lending app to provide some guidance?
Sure, that'd be great. Do I need to click a link or join a third-party online meeting or screen share any application?
Nope, our lending process is instrumented with Glance's guided CX functionality. Just go ahead and click accept on the little pop-up you see on your screen right now, and I can join you instantly.
Oh, I see it happening. I just clicked the link.
Oh, hey, Tom. There you are.
Andy, that was super fast, and like I didn't even have to leave the app. It's like we're having this meeting right here inside the website.
Yeah, absolutely. My customers love this, and it shows. Customer satisfaction scores and transaction conversions rates are really much higher when we use Glance's video and guided CX.
That's awesome. This is really helpful. Well, one of the things that Bonnie and I were talking last night was a number of different questions about the type of loan we wanted, and she's at work, but I wanted to see if I could quick conference her in to talk it through with you. Do you mind if I bridge her on?
Yeah, let's bring her on, for sure.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me just quick connect her. All right.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Bonnie. Hey, I've got Andy on the phone from the mortgage company, and we're talking about some of the questions you and I were discussing last night.
Hey, Bonnie. I understand you're in a different place than Tom, but you can also join us in our app here. Are you in front of a computer?
Yes, but are you sure? 'Cause I'm at work, and my work restricts many websites, and our firewall doesn't allow a number of things to work.
Sure, yeah, this will work even if you have a strict firewall. Why don't you open a browser and go to ghl.com/meet.
Okay. And it's telling me to give you an access code.
Yeah, go ahead and read that off to me whenever you get a chance.
Okay, it's 371066.
066. All right, I'm securely admitting you now.
Holy cow.
Hey, Bonnie.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Can you guys see me?
You can.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is really cool and totally helpful to get us all on here on the same page. Well, hey, Andy, the reason we were calling, one of the questions we had was we were taking a look at either a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit.
Sure, it's a very common question. And let me go ahead and show you some FAQs that we have up on our website that might explain the difference. For the folks at home, I'm going to now move this session to what we call small video mode, to where now we can focus on content on the website being the primary focus versus the video conversation we were just having in full screen mode. So Tom and Bonnie, you guys can go ahead and see this Get Pre-Approved button. Let's go ahead and click that.
Okay, great. I'm following along.
All right. And so, Tom, this is going to be a form we're going to have you fill out. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and click Get the Guide here, and that'll bring up some resources here about the differences between the two products. And as you can see, there's quite a few differences between the two.
So, Andy, we've reviewed this back, but I'm curious about your expert recommendation for us.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I know about you guys and what we talked about before, I definitely think a home equity line of credit is going to be the best option for you here.
Awesome. Thanks for your guidance. The ability to join us in the app for a face-to-face consultation really helps build trust and overcome obstacles. So let's get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're going to get started, go ahead and, Tom, go ahead and click the X in the top right there. And let's go ahead and fill out this form quickly.
So, Andy, while Tom's filling that out, why am I seeing this red bar over the Social Security number?
Oh, Bonnie, great observation. So that red bar around the Social Security number indicates that as an agent, I'm not able to see whatever Tom types into that field. Since it's sensitive information, a Social Security number in this case, we do this for compliance and security reasons inside these sessions.
Oh, great.
Wow, that's really comforting, Andy. Hey, what's next?
All right, let's go ahead and click Continue here and get started.
All right.
All right. So we're just going to quickly review the content here, and you can go ahead and click Submit when you're ready.
All right.
Now, as part of this, you've got documentation that now needs to be e-signed. So you can go ahead and click Sign Your Documents whenever you get a chance here, and we'll bring up your e-disclosures. For the folks at home, this is an example of our DocuTech integration where we're bringing in an e-signature process into a workflow where Tom and Bonnie and myself are participating in.
Yeah, this looks pretty straightforward.
So as you can see here, Tom, we've got your disclosures. You can go ahead and sign those whenever you're ready. And I think that is about all we can do today. Any other questions?
No, I think this is really helpful. Really appreciate your help on helping us navigate through this and answering some of the questions. We'll reach out if we've got any questions.
Yeah, and I'm here to help. Obviously, we can jump on one of these sessions really quickly and easily if you have future questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks
so
much.
All right.
Thanks. Just to recap a couple things we saw in the demo. We saw Glance's video capability, both large and small, the ability to directly embed that video capability into your existing web properties or applications. We took a look at Glance's compliance field masking capability, where you can mask fields that may not be appropriate to transmit to Glance or to the agent view. We also took a look at what we call PDF content co-browsing for Glance, so the ability to kind of gesture and overlay video on top of PDF content. We also saw what we call cross-domain co-browse, so we've embedded the DocuTech workflow directly in that application using a secure iframe and the ability for us to co-browse across those domains, which is something that Glance brings with partner integrations such as DocuTech. And in general, the ability to support very extensive cross-domain co-browsing scenarios, nested iframes, things like that. So just to recap on this, the ability Glance brings to the table is to very seamlessly, with a few lines of code, add this guided CX capability to your existing web and mobile applications. Thanks for watching.
All right, David.
And we're back. We're back. Thank you very much for that presentation and the demo as well. I think with the technology like the ones that Glance is working with, getting the opportunity to see that kind of live demo, to see it in action, is really an invaluable component of the presentation, seeing how seamlessly people can be moved in and out. And again, I think one of the special features that I appreciate is that ability to switch between channel. I think a lot of times you might get a notification on your email that lets you know that you need to touch base with somebody, so you make that contact on your smartphone and then realize, wait a minute, I probably want to use my PC for a little bit more room, or I need to bring in a spouse or partner to confirm a decision, something like that. So those are some of the elements of the demonstration I think are particularly helpful for folks to get to see.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I wanted to remind our attendees that this is an interactive presentation, as Tom mentioned near the beginning. So we will be more than happy to take your questions. You can go ahead and use the Ask a Question button to go ahead and submit your question or comment about either the presentation or the demo that we just saw. I've got a few questions of my own that I will share with Tom and present to Tom while some of the questions from the attendees are coming in. But yeah, go ahead and submit those questions to us. We've got a few in the hopper right now, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Starting off, let's see. Let me take a look at this first question here. This sort of touches on something that you introduced a bit earlier, Tom, in the presentation, sort of comparing Glance to some of the other video interactive solutions that have become common in sort of this COVID era. And I'm curious, one of the questions asked, why wouldn't I just do this using a video meeting solution? And they name check things like Zoom and Teams that you mentioned in your presentation. I thought that might be worth underscoring the difference that people get with Glance.
Sure, it's really important. And today everyone's using Zoom as kind of like the universal Kleenex out there. But when you really are trying to understand, like, hey, why wouldn't I use that? Many of our clients, in fact, all of our clients, are looking to be able to deliver a solution that's going to be embedded into it. So it's really going to be about extending their brand. They want it to be connected with other tools that are going to be able to guide people, highlight gesture. They want a security model that isn't going to expose any information and it's going to be able to meet their specific compliance requirements. And so having these things be able to be intertwined together versus saying, hey, let's jump out to something and use another tool. Part of this is also recognizing that you want a solution that's going to be asymmetric in nature, so that you are able to provide a permissions and control, because the banker versus the client or the customer are going to have different requirements, and you want the banker to be able to do certain things but maybe not see certain things. and we want the customer to be able to do certain things as well. And meeting tools, everyone is in a symmetric relationship. Everyone is equal. And so you don't have those abilities to apply that level of control onto the solution.
That was definitely one of the things that really jumped out at me in your presentation that was dramatized very well with regard to the PEII and just how to handle that. A lot of the kinds of interactions that people would use this for, there's definitely going to be some PII exchange potentially, and to show folks that there's a provision established for that kind of thing, I think is another area where this is going to give folks a lot of comfort in terms of engaging with technology.
And the thing that made many of these video solutions widely adopted was they were already available. And so it was kind of like the pandemic hit, people kind of did the old like break the glass, grab the fire hose, fight the fire. Let's use whatever we've got, and they worked. They worked. But now now they're like, hey, we've got all these different tools. Can we start to really think about how we want to do business? What does the customer journey look like? How do we want to interact with them? And recognizing in the moment becomes an important aspect. In brand becomes even more important because we don't want to be suddenly navigating from our property to, oh, we have to educate you on some other tool. And security, that is something that is always top of mind, and it's something that we always see in the news. Security is not going away.
Absolutely, just about every other day, it seems. One of the things also that was interesting, you talked a moment ago about the third-party approach or the third-party temptation, depending on how you look at it. What are some of the ways that institutions can make sure that the solution like Glance is a preferable one for their needs, as opposed to one of these third-party solutions that's always been in the news, for example, over the past, say, year and a half?
Well, I think the way we've approached some of our technology, we've been a solution that is always been predicated on delivering something that's simple, secure, and always works. And knowing the always works piece, has gone down a path of really taking a look at like what technology do we use. Our video solution is not based on WebRTC. It's H.264 codec. We're doing a number of things that other meeting tools are doing, but the idea is being able to embed that solution, whether it's on a mobile, iOS, Android, or in the desktop, and to be able to connect with people wherever they are. We recognize that people that are struggling are across a wide range of ages. They're using all kinds of equipment. It's not like everyone's using brand new stuff and you're like, hey, look, it works beautifully on that new device, that new laptop, that new browser. People are using old stuff. And so you want to be able to deliver a solution that allows you to connect with as many people, as well as doesn't get them upset when suddenly you're like, oh, that solution is eating the battery on my mobile phone, or burning up a lot of bandwidth. So making solutions that just work, that allow us to connect instantaneously, become really important.
Absolutely, and your answer actually does anticipate one of the questions that we had, which was a sort of a technology-specific question about WebRTC. Folks knowing that that's one of the options. Very interesting to hear that you've opted not for that approach, and why you opted for the approach that you did. Yeah.
It's not to say that WebRTC isn't a great technology. It's really about trying to take a look to say, what are we actually trying to do instantaneously, in the moment, in brand and secure? And we've chosen a technology that allows us to do that. And we've got brands that are using this a lot, millions of minutes, and it shows. And these are the decisions that they're making and validating that this is the right approach.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that came in, I believe you probably touched on over the course of the demo, but perhaps by way of giving reassurance to folks maybe, and it talks about the idea of while Glance appears to be browser-based, that it does work with mobile apps and interacts with mobile smartphones and things like that.
Yeah, so we built things like a mobile SDK package. So you can actually take the mobile SDK, you can embed it into a native mobile app, whether it's iOS or Android, and have that same experience. And you can also do it on a desktop application. So think about you running a piece of software, or maybe, we talked a little bit about TurboTax, where you're downloading the tax software and because you don't want to use the website or the web portal. So you download the software, you run it natively. We're built into those as well. So whatever solution you have, whatever journey you have, we have the ability to connect, whether it's a desktop application, most prominently is, of course, the browser, but also on the native mobile apps.
Mm-hmm. One thing that really strikes me listening to the presentation, the understanding, the idea that a lot of these trends were in place before COVID and how COVID accelerated them. And now as we get, at least in the West, most of the West, starting to emerge from this COVID moment, a lot of the great party that's planned for New York City, these sorts of things. And I think about the issue of digital fatigue, that a lot of us have really been sort of forced maybe to do with more digital than we'd wanted to. And it seems like one of the ways it's going to help people sort of both return to that human interface while still bringing some of the advantages of that digital world with them are solutions like this that sort of help smooth that process out. So you don't have a person who feels like they're stuck in a world with chatbots, but they're starting to get some of the human engagement that they're going to actually start to get reintroduced to in real life over the next coming weeks and so forth. So I found that to be really a helpful way for folks who say, I've been doing this digital for a year and a half and I'm sick of it, to say, well, wait a minute, we're not just leaving you to your own devices with a chatbot, we're working with you. I thought that idea of the do-it-yourself plus do it together was a very compelling way for folks maybe to look at this period, this sort of post-COVID period that we're entering now.
Yeah, I love the sort of do it yourself and the do it together culture, because you realize that I don't need help everywhere. What I do need is help at those critical advisory moments. And I also think that we hear even CEOs of some of these meeting tool companies have been like, wow, man, I've got meeting fatigue. I've got video fatigue. But the fact is that people have fatigue mainly because, one, you're sitting around, you're not able to get up and walk around. You're there staring at a camera like we are right now. But also at the same time is you realize that where they're not getting fatigue, U.S. Bank, we saw in the news last week, talk about, hey, you know what, we've rolled out video to all of our bankers, and now you're able to meet your neighborhood banker to be able to do something. So when people are like, hey, you know what, I really like those digital tools. It was convenient. It was able to connect with someone in context, and I was able to have a really good interaction because I wanted to get something done. And so you suddenly are like, I value my time. I value the effort that is required to maybe drive, find a place to park, walk in. And I'm like, I can do this now digitally. So I think what we're starting to see is some digital interactions are getting demoted because people value that, we got to get out. I got to get to the restaurant. I got to go see friends. I got to go to the office to make a connection with someone. But we also see, as the pandemic is ending, we're also seeing the rise and the promotion of so many other digital interactions because people are like, hey, this is just easier. I'm going to do it, and I want more.
Yeah, absolutely. It sort of reminds me again, just some of the things that video does, and then obviously you added the interactive aspect of video, and there was a phrase that you used, access to expertise, which I thought is one of those things that maybe sounds grandiose in a certain sense, but if I'm calling a bank, it's because there are people who know what they're doing in banking there, and they can help me. And just the idea, I think about it in YouTube and other instances where nowadays we can tap into people who really know what they're doing, and they're right there at our fingertips to hear them and to tell us what it is that we need to do something that maybe we've never done before. And just thinking of it in that sense, not necessarily just as customer service, but as these are the people who are going to be able to answer your questions. And now what this enables you to do is to really tap into experts. You mentioned the tax example of folks who can, maybe you don't really have a question per se, but can you just make sure that I didn't screw it up? That's expertise that you're relying on. And I think that conceptualizing it that way, I think is a really powerful way to folks to really value that engagement as opposed to saying, oh, I don't have a question. I kind of know. It's like, wouldn't you like to have an expert take a quick look, somebody who really knows, just to make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed your T's? And I really appreciated the way that you underscored that in the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, I didn't say enough necessarily about that because when you really think about what's happening, digital tools are really capturing and doing a good job at what we a lot of times like to call that low-hanging fruit. Is the store open? Is this in stock? All these questions that are out there. And I always think, today, digital tools do a great job, a better job than human beings at finding information and presenting it quickly and being able to allow us to assimilate a lot of this information. But when you're looking for advice, that's the part where you realize, hey, I'm actually looking for someone to help me make a decision to move forward. And to really start thinking about that, I talked about the gig economy and that sort of the Uber drivers. But we also see large enterprises and other businesses go, wow, you know what? This is how we're going to differentiate. We're going to be able to connect people at those critical moments who need help. But we're not finding those people who want to work in a contact center that might not have windows, that's in a cubicle, and you're like, hey, I might have a Series 7 license. I might be certified. I might be someone who's like working for an accounting firm, and I could moonlight on the side to do some of this work. So I think what we're starting to see is the promotion of real expertise, and companies need to find this expertise out there. Maybe someone who's going to be a contractor versus a full-time employee, but knowing that they're going to be dispersed, they're going to be remote, they're not going to be working in some central location, and we want to be able to connect those people. And I think of like of the banking space. We all know that if you're in wealth management, we're doing business based on relationships. But as you think about all the financial types of transactions that you have, there's many of them that you don't do frequently enough, and you need to be able to connect with someone because you don't have that frequency. Like, I don't need help paying bills because I pay 20 or 30 of them every single month. But I might need help setting up online bill pay, because I've never done it before.
Absolutely. It's a really, really interesting point. I just want to let folks know that, again, we are taking questions. If you've got any questions for Tom, either about the presentation or about the demo, or if you have a comment, if you've used Glance, you've used other technologies that haven't worked out for you, and you'd like to ask Tom to find out some of the ways that maybe Glance might do better for you, then certainly feel free to send us that comment, as well as any question that you might have. We still have a couple of minutes here for our presentation, so there's plenty of time if you do have a question or a comment for Tom. There was a concept that you mentioned earlier, actually two concepts, that I thought maybe one of them I think we're somewhat familiar with, the other one a little bit less so, and I thought maybe in this context maybe you could sort of elaborate just a little bit on them in terms of what you think actually is necessary to make these implementations work for companies. And you referred to organizational alignment and customer centricity. And I think, at least in terms of customer centricity, a lot of us have an idea what we think that means. But I wonder if you could talk about both of those two in this particular context and why they are sort of what's necessary in order to really reap the full benefits out of this kind of technology.
Well, customer centricity is really another way of saying, can you walk a few steps in my shoes? And making sure that you understand, like, what are customers actually doing? What are they experiencing? How do they actually navigate? And what are the challenges? Because you think about a classic case of working for a company, and you have an expense report, and you're like, was this expense tool ever designed for the end user, or was it designed for the people in the finance department? Because they love it. And it's like, it does everything for them. But what about me? I'm the end user. I think this is not a great experience. And so companies have done things in many ways to suit their business needs, to make sure that they can run their business. But they haven't put it in the sense of, like, how are we going to give a customer a great experience? One that suddenly is like, I want them to spend less time doing something. So we want it to be really convenient. We want it to be in context. And we want to give them that ability to have a level of control. People. So doing that journey mapping and literally walking through the steps of what that journey looks like. What are the steps that the customer has to do? How do they suddenly connect with different people? Planning process. And then once you do that, then you can really identify what is the combination of tools that you may want to incorporate in the beginning or towards the end, and what are the hard moves? And so when we think about banking, enrolling a customer in a new account, there's a classic two really hard crux moves. You think about the first one is know your customer, which is, hey, David, is this actually you? We need to prove it. Can you provide all the credentials so that we can establish a level of identity so that we can open the account? And then you go through, like, happily, easily getting your account set up. And then the next hard move is, I actually have to fund it. I got to, like, put money into that account. And so these are the types of things that when you start to map out all these different journeys and understand what's the best way to deal with it, where can a human help? Where can a digital tool help? How do we bring them together? So it's not just like, disjointed, componentry, but, suddenly someone's maybe interacting with a chatbot. How do they, elevate that conversation to a live person? And how does a live person suddenly like, hey, David, I think you're on your way. Do you need any help? Great, let me put you back. And you then go and finish the transaction on your own. It's that level of work that we're seeing, companies who are really successful at this take the time to really understand it, map it out, and think about it.
Yeah, I wanted to have maybe elaborate a little bit on that. I think the example that you provided of Intuit was really a pretty incredible and pretty comprehensive example in terms of just how they were able to take the technology and really truly just run down the field with it. I'm wondering maybe if you could sum up either by way of a bullet point or maybe a pointer or two about those factors, characteristics, that companies that have really been able to make the most out of this technology. Some of the things they might have had in common, whether it's culture, again, we talked about the idea of organizational alignment, whether it's leadership, whether it's having a bit of a background in technology and being able to feel comfortable very early on with the idea of integrating new technologies. Is there anything in common that the companies that you think have really done well with technologies like Glances have all done? Any commonalities in there?
There are, and I'll tell you, there are some companies that are born and just run a culture of innovation. And a lot of them tend to be, technologists to begin with. And I think Intuit is a classic, company. They might be, in the financial services space in terms of things like QuickBooks and, TurboTax. But they're a technology company, and they're constantly innovating and thinking about how they can do things better, which means they're comfortable with a level of change. But you go into many financial institutions, they are not comfortable with change. In fact, change often is presented as a risk. And where we've seen the best, the companies that have done this the best has really been when you have a senior leader, when you have people at the top. And I think, I think someone like U.S. Bank, because I quoted a few things, people like Tim Welsh, but also some of our best customers is sponsorship that says, hey, you know what, David? This is what the promised land looks like. We're going to go there. And you have a top-down approach that's driving that cultural change and letting people know that, hey, you know what? This is going to be hard. This isn't going to be easy, but we're going to do it together. We're going to do it together, and we're going to get there. And the other part is none of these organizations are just doing it on a whim. They are companies that understand their metrics. They are doing a tremendous amount of tracking to understand what the outcomes look like. So there's a fair amount of analysis of every little detail so they can see how the levers are starting to move. And that is not just providing them with reassurance that they're doing the right thing, but it's also encouragement. Hey, we are doing the right thing. Let's do more of the right thing. And when you suddenly see that customers are happier, when you see things like lifetime value move up, or, hey, we're able to increase revenue through expanding wallet share by exposing customers to, hey, David, did you know we actually can move that over and we can get you into a CD? Hey, we can put you into a home equity line of credit, and you're able to expose them to other products. You realize, wow, these are the types of things that are fueling that type of innovation. But you can't do it without having that level of executive sponsorship or a level of measurement that supports that level of change.
Very good. So we're thinking we need leadership, we need culture, we need some sort of accountability to track progress, would you say? You
got it. Absolutely.
Yeah, very, very, very good. Again, I wanted to, we had one question that came in. It was more of a procedural question. Someone was curious whether or not folks will have access to the presentation after the presentation. And the answer to that question is yes, that we will make the presentation available in the days to come after we're done here. I believe it will be available on the Finovate blog. There will be other opportunities to get access to it. As well as you'll note on the screen itself, there's contact information for Tom. So in addition, if there's questions that you didn't want to ask openly here in public, I just wanted to drop him a quick note to ask something maybe very specific or something that's a little bit maybe more in the weeds. His email address is right there on the screen, so you can feel free perhaps to go ahead and to reach out to him by that direction as well. Going ahead, and we're going to go ahead and finish up around now. I think, let's see, double check here if we've covered all of the questions that have come in. Yes, it looks like we have. Excellent. So I was thinking maybe just by way of wrapping up, if there were any sort of high-level takeaways, Tom, that you wanted to maybe share with folks going away. I know I had one last question, and it has to do with data collection and the experience. You have these human agents who are interacting with folks. Maybe they jumped off of one channel into another. What are some of the processes, or what are some of the ways that folks can take those interactions that they have with the human interest they have with customers and clients, and then turn those into data points that can be then used to refine products, to refine services, and so forth going forward?
I think there's some of the things that we're collecting from the standpoint of connecting with customers in different processes. I think there are plenty of tools that can help you understand like where customers are on things like websites and mobile apps, but really thinking about what you're doing with the customers and where do they need help, and realizing that sometimes that level of information informs you that, hey, you know what, we actually need to provide more training to our employees. We may want to make sure that people can connect, because it might not be like, oh, we're going to add those questions or that information to the knowledge base or to the Q&A, or we're going to create a tool, because you realize that what people actually are looking for is seeking out those human connections. And so part of this is going, hey, you know what, we actually want to go back and provide better training, because we know that the best customer service people deliver a level of empathy and personal connection that resonates with customers. Because in the end, I always like to say people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so the conclusions that you get from a lot of this information isn't like, oh, look, we can automate something more. It might be, whoa, hold on, magic is happening right here. People are actually meeting David, who's my neighborhood banker. And it gives me a level of comfort and reassurance that I'm working with an organization that has my back, that has my best interest at heart. So I think and ask people to say, hey, you know what, there's a lot of information that you start to collect, but it isn't always to say, hey, let's continue to find ways to make things more digital. I'm advocating, let's find and look for ways to make things more human. And find a way to weave them together.
Truly. And just lastly, just hearing you talk about that, I just think for the people working at the financial services company and the new role that they get to have, other than just saying when the branch opens, or as you mentioned, where the ATMs are, to really actually get to do some service, to actually really engage other human beings, to really try to help people out. And I can't help but imagine that for some of those people doing that work, that it's a much more rewarding experience, really engaging people with the specific problems and issues that they have, as opposed to essentially reading off of a card some information that could have been portrayed in some other fashion.
People who are hired into those roles actually have a desire to help people out. And when you're able to give them the ability to really help them out, to do their job better, that's where you realize, hey, what's the byproduct? Wow, employee retention, employee happiness. Last I checked, happy people deliver happy experiences. And so, that's never lost on me. And I love seeing you smile, because it's true. Happy people are contagious, and they speak about your brand. And when you can give them ways to deliver those magical experiences to customers, you have those byproducts. Natural improvement in how you're represented, employee retention, employee happiness.
Absolutely. Fantastic messages, and maybe a very good ways for us to end for today. Very, very interesting stuff. I'm afraid we're running about out of time. Apologies for any questions that we didn't get to. As you notice on the screen there, that those of you who participated will get a recording of the webinar. You'll get a PDF of the actual deck, as well as a report, the Forrester Tech Tide Report, Video Technologies for Customer and Employee Experience, as you just heard from Tom himself, benefit for both customers and employees. when technologies like this are embraced. And that's something that I think that everyone who participated in the webinar is definitely going to enjoy and benefit from taking a look at all of those things that you'll receive for having been a part of today's presentation. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Tom, most importantly, for a very fascinating presentation and demo. Thank all of you who joined us for sending us your questions and your insights and comments as well. We look forward to seeing you at our next Finovate webinar. Until then, Tom, thanks again. Thank you, and have an excellent day.
Thanks, David. Take care.